cartoony survival game where kids are shrunk may appear on the surface to be a casual game, but that's not the case with Grounded. Over the course of its development, the game has evolved into a fairly challenging experience. When I first got back into the game in mid-2021, the game felt a little too easy. In a matter of just a few hours, you could get the best armor and weapon and decimate every creature in your path. Subsequent updates added upgrade systems for armor and weapons, which meant getting back to the overpowered state would require dozens of hours of grinding resources. Additionally, most of the best weapons have been gated behind 2 choke points. If you're familiar with the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. The most recent and final update before the full release of Grounded overhauled the upgrade systems once again. This overhaul replaced the resource-intensive grind, which allowed for unlimited upgrading, with new resources which are very limited early in the game. Later on, you'll earn the ability to craft the new upgrade resources, but getting to that point is the reason I'm making this video. A few weeks ago, I started a fresh save to play during my live streams over on Twitch. Make sure to follow me over there to catch my live streams for the full release of Grounded. Link is down in the description. I did this because I wanted to test the progression from the start to the end of the current content, since so much has changed in the recent updates. I knew going in it was going to be a little bit rougher than previous playthroughs, but I didn't expect to reach a point where had I not made the right decisions, I wouldn't have been able to progress. Keeping this spoiler free, other than what you'll experience in the first few minutes, here's how the game progresses. Shortly after starting a new game, you'll be tasked with investigating the mysterious machine. After repairing it, you'll be sent to the first lab. Here you'll be tasked with retrieving a chip that will be marked on the map. This will be the first challenge a new player faces. I expect the average player to get through it, although there may be a few deaths along the way. After achieving the chip from the lab, you'll be asked to find several others, which will be marked on the map as well. From this point on, at least as of this recording, you'll be free to acquire them in any order you wish. This puts a new player at a crossroads, having no idea which one to go after next. For the purpose of this video, we're only going to be looking at the 3 chips that are in labs. There are other chips in other locations as well. The 3 labs can be taken on in any order, but the order in which you choose to play them could be the difference between you progressing through the game and hitting an impenetrable wall. The reason for this is one of the 3 labs, in my opinion, is far more difficult than the other 2. 2 of the labs can be completed using many different armor and weapon combinations. In fact, you can likely complete them with unupgraded or low-level gear. The third, however, is going to be different. At this point in the game, you'll have access to a limited number of upgrade resources for both armor and weapons. This means you'll reach a point where you simply cannot upgrade anything else until you unlock the ability to craft these resources yourself. To unlock the crafting recipes, you'll need to complete the lab that will pose the biggest challenge. In my opinion, what this does is add RNG to your chances of progression. If you choose to upgrade the wrong gear before reaching this choke point, it very well could mean your progression will be stopped completely. Blowing through the 2 quote-unquote easier labs may provide a false sense of security, resulting in you spending your limited upgrade resources frivolously. When you finally make your way to the other lab, your choices, completely unbeknownst to you, will have likely already decided your fate. For those of you that have played the game recently, you'll likely know exactly what I'm talking about, but for everyone else, here's the spoiler-free highlights. In this lab, you will need to get past an encounter to obtain the chip that will allow you to craft the first tier of upgrade resources. More likely than not, you'll fail the first attempt, and perhaps several more. Eventually, if you have the right gear and skill, you can prevail. If, however, you have the wrong gear, you could be in for a long, painful experience. For me, even knowing exactly what was coming, in this most recent playthrough, it took me 4 tries to get through this encounter. I went into it with upgraded armor and weapons, used all the right buffs, and had tons of healing items, and I still died 3 times. On the 4th attempt, I prevailed. The armor I used had 2 pieces at level 7 and 1 at level 6, and my weapons were all level 5. What are the chances that a new player doing a blind playthrough will make the right choices leading up to this point? Is it reasonable to expect a new player to 1. Realize they can upgrade gear, 2. Find adequate upgrade resources, 3. Choose the right gear to upgrade, 4. Collect the chips in order to position themselves for success, 5. Realize they can activate buffs in various ways, 6. Use the right buffs at the right time. Perhaps some god gamers will push through on skill alone, but for the average and casual player, this encounter could be the tipping point. Don't get me wrong, dying is part of Grounded. It's part of every survival game. It's inevitable, especially in a first playthrough. You learn from your mistakes, make the necessary adjustments, and try again. In most games, this works. It doesn't work in Grounded in some situations, at least not as I'm recording this. For all the game does well, there is one area that I'm praying will be addressed in the full release it falls short on, and that's teaching players all the mechanics of the game. The game doesn't nudge the player to upgrade any gear other than including the required station in the science shop. It doesn't mention the upgrade resources are limited for the first half of the game. It doesn't highlight any of the buffs that are unlocked as you progress through the game. It doesn't encourage consuming items to obtain buffs, nor how those buffs work with one another. It doesn't give any hint as to where you should go after collecting the initial chip. Regarding that last point, I despise handholding in games. In fact, I wasn't happy to see the chip locations added to the map, but at the same time, the game needs to allow the player to naturally discover where to go next. If all locations were of equal difficulty, this wouldn't be much of an issue, but that's not the case. My greatest concern heading into the full release of Grounded is none of this is going to change. During the final PTS, there was very little feedback provided regarding the progression in the channels I follow. If that's the case, there is a very real chance that the impenetrable wall I described will exist, depending on the choices a player makes, and that will be a shame. Grounded is a great survival game that everyone should be able to experience fully.